What a great decision you made today to join us in the trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, as always, coming to you from our outstanding studio provided by First Star Logistics. It was 1 year ago, almost to the date, that Joe Goodberry joined the First Star Media Group, and we did our first show together, and it was a lot of fun. So we decided, okay, let's have an anniversary show. Joe Goodberry, who is Bengals on the brain, by the way, and he is a brain. There's no doubt about that. We're glad to have him here, and it's going to be your show. It's going to be predicated on your questions. So let's get right to them.
This question's from the Bengalorian. Have we found a solid answer to the Tyler Boyd question? Is it Gesicki? Is it Burton? Or someone else?
I think it's going to be by committee. I think it's going to be all three. I do think Burton has great talent for the slot position, but it's where you have to learn the most. I mean, they can run more combination coverages. You have to worry about linebackers, safeties. You have to worry about a lot of traffic in the slot position as opposed to just on the outside. So people, I think, underestimate that a little bit. But Burton has great talent for being a slot receiver. I mean, his route running ability is phenomenal. I mean, he gets in and out of his cuts so well. Gesicki is a big target, and he's another guy that can, they can line up in the slot. I just think that, like they've done in the past, and Joe, I mean, they've had tight ends at the outside of the receivers in formations, and they've had, they play a lot of games there. Everybody has to learn everything, you're not just tunnel vision on one position. So I think that there's going to be probably quite a few options that they're going to look at, particularly early in the season in that slot position, and eventually maybe somebody may just take it over.
Yeah, and I think what you're touching on there is probably the reason why they moved on from Tyler Boyd. It's getting more versatile, using more players in that position. Right. You had to kind of keep Boyd in the slot, and I don't think they want to do that. Maybe to get Jamar Chase in there a little bit more often, put Andre Yoshivash on the outside, right? Maybe Charlie Jones last year can take a step in camp when we see something out of him, and he cuts into that in the slot. But, yeah, I think they want to get more multiple and use more people and be more versatile in all, and I think that includes using everyone.
Yeah, and I think it's it's predicated on matchups. I mean, you're going to try to dictate matchups defensively. I mean, basically, they have to react to what you're doing, and if they don't, you get the mismatch you're looking for. And so I think it's going to be a little bit of a chess match going on there at that slot position. This question comes from Hubei. What position group do you think will surprise people this year, Joe?
Okay, so we're going surprise. So I'm going to take a group that maybe isn't the best group on the team, but they've added a lot of players to it. I'm going to go with the defensive end unit. Now, we know what Trey Hendrickson is. He's their best pass rusher. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league, but they could use another guy to step up. And last year's first-round pick, Myles Murphy, could be that. If he takes a step forward as a pass rusher, that could give them two really good edge rushers. He's already really good against the run, or should be. I thought he really was in Clemson. Big body dude, long arm, strong. I think year two for him, if he takes that leap, that's big for this defensive line. But Sam Hubbard last year, let's not forget, he was injured many injuries, and it affected his play. You could see it on tape. If he bounces back and gets to where he was, we know what Sam Hubbard is. He's going to give them the leadership and the play, especially against the run. That should get them to those pass rushing downs. And I can't quit Joseph Osai. I feel like every time he's had a chance to perform when healthy, he has looked good as one of their best edge rushers. Let's see if we can get him out on the field and how much they can get him out there. Should give a shout out to Cam Sample, who's been a pretty solid depth player for them. So I'm going to say the defensive end group should surprise. And if they do, that really helps this defense.
I agree, man. I think you get some snaps with that depth. I mean, quality snaps with that position. They could be in pretty good shape. There's no question about that. I agree 100,000%. I think the running back position as well. I mean, Joe Mixon has been the bell cow, and rightfully so. I'm a Pro Bowler, and he's toted the mail. There's no doubt. Now he moves on, and he caught the football really well. And in addition to that, I think Brown has got breakaway speed. Chase Brown can get it done. I mean, he's got long speed, and all these running backs are 5 years or less experience in the National Football League, so they're just now starting to get into their prime. And usually year 2 and 3 is when the light goes on and guys like, I really didn't know what I didn't know. Now I do. Now I'm just going to let my talent take over a little bit. Zach Moss comes from the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, he can run it, he can catch it, and most importantly, he's solid as a rock in blitz pickup for Joe Burrow. There's no doubt about that. Then Chris Evans on special teams. Travion Williams on special teams. These guys are return guys that do a good job and provide depth for the backfields. So like you're saying, Joe, I mean, they get a lot of guys at defensive end. They can give snaps. They get a lot of guys at running back and give them snaps as well.
And I think that might be the surprising part for me that may surprise people at the running back position. I expect a committee approach, which is something we haven't seen in a long time. I expect Chase Brown and Zach Moss to get the ball. But don't be surprised if the third and fourth guy get mixed in as well. And we haven't seen that, I would say, since Joe Mixon's rookie year when it was Mixon, Jeremy Hill, Giovanni Bernard. Since then, it's been a bell cow approach with Joe Mixon. I think we're going to get to see a little bit mixing around.
And I think that was a big reason that Zach Moss, the Bengals were excited to get him. He was excited to come here. He's gone through that with Indianapolis, you know, and he's not like, you know, big ego guy. He'll share responsibility, which is a good thing for the football team.
Next one from Bengal Brit. The rookies this year and their respective paths to playing time, regardless of position, which do you predict will have the biggest impact when we look back 10 years from now? 10 years from now, Dave.
Well, I mean, the guy that you hope, at least as a former offensive lineman, that 10 years from now you look back and say, who had the biggest impact over the longest period of time? Marius Mims. I mean, to me, that big dude, he's got it all. I mean, the physical traits are extraordinary. Obviously has not had a lot of playing time in terms of game reps. Before you look at the tape of him working out against teammates in the SEC, pass rush drills, 9-on-7, interior offensive and defensive line working in the running game and the passing game as a group. He gets it done now. This guy, you got to stay healthy, and they don't have to rush him. But I think over the long haul, over an extended period of time, this guy has multiple year Pro Bowl potential physically, and he's smart. He can. He's a quick learner, quick study. He's got football IQ, and I think the sky's the limit for this kid.
Yeah, it'd be hard to go against that pick for Marius Mims because he may not be the immediate impact, right? Because he may not play before Trent Brown does at right tackle.
Right.
So yeah, so this question being phrased 10 years in the future, you have to think and look back, well, okay, a lot of this class may not help this year. I mean, Chris Jenkins should have a rotation. Yep. Jermaine Burton could end up starting in the slot, but there's a lot of guys there that he could be competing with for playing time. Which of the tight ends maybe emerges down the line? Can McKinley Jackson carve out a role as a rookie, as the nose tackle on the team? So we may not see these guys too much early on, but I agree with you. If you're going to pick one later down the line, who had the impact? And I think it's important, not just for the health of Joe Burrow in this offense. They haven't hit an offensive line pick really in a while, right? But this guy's got all the potential to be a stud.
And the good thing for him is he's joining a group that have multiple guys that have gone to Super Bowl and won Super Bowls and been Pro Bowlers. I mean, he's in a great situation as a young player, and he's that kind of guy. He's a sponge, man. He wants to absorb and learn everything. And he's got a bunch of mentors that he can learn from, and he's got himself in a good situation.
Mentors that look like him too.
Yeah, right.
Orlando Brown and Trent Brown.
Right.
They don't get any bigger than that. If you've got a workout plan or a meal plan for those guys, hey, you follow that.
It's the Cincinnati skyline, man. Those guys are monsters. If it's a hot day at training camp, stand behind them. They cast that big shadow, man. This question from D.D. Merritt. How do you both genuinely feel about how the upcoming season will go? I can't fight back the feeling that this is the year it all comes together. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I feel that energy and excitement, right? Anytime you have the franchise quarterback and presumed health, which, I mean, that's going to be something we're going to keep an eye on going into it. That's the only thing that really holds me back a little bit is, hey, if the quarterback isn't healthy, well, then things can go sideways very, very quickly. But, assuming he's healthy and cleared and everything's good to go by week 1, which is the path and the goal to get him there, then the team is really good. And when they've had him and when they've had him for a full season, they've been knocking on the door twice now. And that's all you can ask for. So I'm with you. At the very least, I'm looking at this team and saying, hey, you're not always going to have a fourth place schedule. You're not always going to have it in the – I mean, you look at the schedule. It does. Usually we say, oh, man, tough slate this year. I'd hate to say that it doesn't look that difficult, but maybe that's our feelings on the team of saying, yeah, the Bengals are that good. They should win these games. It should be 11-12. Maybe plus wins. Does that mean a first seed? Can they get that bye week? Can they get themselves in that situation and avoid the slow start that has plagued them and probably robbed them of the first seed twice now? So, yeah, if they can get in there and do that and be positioned, I'm with you, Didi. I think they got a great shot.
Yeah, I think they've got roster depth because attrition in the National Football League is inevitable. It's going to happen somewhere. You just hope it's not at quarterback or another key position group. You hope that those position groups stay intact. But I do think that they've done a really good job in veteran free agency and in the draft. All 10 draft picks could make the team and have some sort of role. Maybe not all active on the 53-man roster. Some may be on a practice squad. Some may be inactive on game day. But I think all 10 draft picks have a legitimate chance of being with the organization when all is said and done. So I do think that they've put the bat on the ball in that regard. And again, when I was playing, hope springs eternal, man. Everybody's oh man, this is going to be a great year for us. And even when you go into training camp, everybody's 0-0. Nobody's lost a game. And then week one, reality hits. Half the teams lose. And then you really start to find out where you are, how you might stack up. But I do think that this team will get off to a better start. I think the first 4 games in the schedule this year are kind of conducive to that. If they play like they're capable of playing, they should get off to, I'm hoping and thinking, maybe a 3-1 start. And then things look a lot different. You're not digging out of that hole, but it's a long year. There's no question about that.
Speaking of the starts, though, I think that's one of the impressive things about this team in the Zach Taylor era is, and I know we're frustrated that they don't get out to better starts, but the fact that they don't fold and they were able to rebound every year and get back into it. I mean, that's a mark of a team that's confident in their ability and what they're supposed to be. You talk about everyone's got hope at this point, and then maybe week 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, maybe this isn't our year. Maybe we're not as good as we thought they were. They have not hit that point. They are like, no, we're going to get there. We know we're going to get there, and they'll rattle off at the end of the year 8, 10 wins, and it's like, okay, well, you're back in position.
I agree. I mean, it's confidence in each other. It's trust in each other. I mean, they've really done a good job. I mean, there's real belief. There's buy-in. I mean, guys buy into it. And the thing is, in the past, they've had a slow start, not just losing, but losing division games early on. You start off 0-2 in the division. It's like, dang, we only play 6 of them. We're a third of the way into it. We don't have a win yet, But instead of, like you're saying, instead of like folding the 10, it's like, all right, we got to get back to 500 in the division. Let's go. Let's get it done. And that's the way they've approached it. And that's admirable, to say the least.
Next one from S-Like926. If you can add one former but not obvious great Bengals player to this year's team, who would it be and why?
I'll tell you, with a guy like Joe Burrow, I feel like I can't get him enough weapons. I'm going Isaac Curtis.
Wow.
I'm going Isaac Curtis. Because this guy, man, I'm telling you, he was the best player I'd ever seen. I mean, when I was a rookie and I go to training camp and I watch Isaac Curtis run, I'm like, what? I mean, Olympic speed.
Yeah.
He almost made the Olympic relay team. I mean, it's like legitimate Olympic speed. And not only could he stretch the field that way, Isaac could get in and out of cuts. He didn't have to slow it down, choke it down to get in and out of cuts. And I'm telling you, everybody talks about receivers with great hands. This dude had sticky glue fingers. And I mean, I don't remember him ever dropping a football that was like, are you kidding me? Isaac, are you kidding me? At a key moment, he made play after play after play. I think he's one of the more clutch guys, in pro football in his era. And I love it for his celebration move. Just so casual, so cool. Isaac was not only maybe the greatest player in early in my career but the coolest, man. The dude was he had life figured out. And him added to that mix at receiver. Are you kidding me? Joe Burrow may rewrite the whole record book.
And he killed the Browns. So that could help. We could use that right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. His numbers were insane against Cleveland. Yeah. And the Bengals right now are struggling with that and adding a third receiver. I'm surprised you go receiver. Dave Lapham in the trenches going with a weapon. I'm going to go in the trenches then just for that. I'm going to say Geno Atkins because I was going to to say, well, not obvious. Anthony Munoz, and maybe we're still cutting some of the top 15 players.
We can't go with Anthony. Right. That's 100% of everybody's pick. Yeah.
Agreed. So I'm going to go Geno Atkins, and I think getting a pass rusher inside like that, and I think he was the best player on some really good teams from 2010 to 2018 or so, and he dealt with an injury one year, but in between that, a perennial Pro Bowler, all pro type player. He, I think, made it to the point where Aaron Donald comes right after him, but maybe Aaron Donald doesn't get drafted as high as he does without seeing Geno Atkins at 290 pounds and 6 foot and some change, getting under natural leverage and power, but athletic and tough and could play. And, you think of him as a pass rusher. I think a lot of us do, but I was rewatching a lot of these games, and his penetration into the backfield would blow up plays routinely. And adding that to this team right now would be huge. And imagine the sacks, the numbers Trey Hendrickson would have with that pocket getting pushed in the middle by Geno Atkins. Yeah, I think. Can we have both of these guys? Because that'll get a ring on the finger.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I think, Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins kind of lived off each other a little bit. So you're right. I mean, Trey Hendrickson, it's like you can't double everybody. It's just the common denominator with both of our selections. They got doubled.
Yeah.
And if they could, people would triple them. It's like, so no doubt they impacted the game of football. But yeah, obviously the great number 78, man. You add him to any football team in any era, or any franchise, they're going to be better. The dude was ridiculously special. Anthony Munoz, the best. Interesting question from Governor Chief. From what you believe, can you list the most impactful players for this season in this year's draft and last year's draft, 1 through 10, 1 being the biggest impact?
Okay, so we're thinking of the last 2 years' draft classes, and we're thinking what their impact will be this season. So that makes it interesting because if we already said we don't expect a lot of these rookies this year to have big roles or starting roles, well, then I go back and look at last year's class, and I say, okay, Miles Murphy, is he going to start? That may be subjective to how you view a starter. I mean, the third defensive end is going to play 600 snaps, right? He's going to be out there. DJ Turner's in a battle for that spot to win that job, and if he does, that'll be pretty impactful. Jordan Battle will play. Will he start over Von Bell? We'll have to see how that goes. That's another battle to keep an eye on.
3 safety packages that Anarumo uses, yeah.
Yeah, and then we got Charlie Jones, Andre Yoshivas from last year. Will one of those guys find a way to get into that? We talked about the receiver group already. So there's a chance, there's a path for them. I'm going to go with them. The guy I didn't mention from last year as maybe the most impactful could be Chase Brown. I wouldn't be surprised if he was their most effective, most explosive running back, even if we get to a 50-50 split between he and Zach Moss. I think Chase Brown, being the more explosive player, can be the guy that creates a lot of big plays for this offense. And we're talking about impact here. We're talking about getting that safety back into the box because we're ripping off 20-yard runs or having screens, 30-yard screens because of Chase Brown. I think there's big potential for him to be an impact player. So I'm going to put him maybe the highest just for this year, right? We're just talking this year. And I'll say Chase Brown, and maybe I'm too high on that, but I can see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It tells you the quality of player that they've got. It's some of these people we're talking about, going to have to work hard to earn some snaps. I'm thinking, in this year's draft class, I'm hoping Jenkins and McKinley get in that rotation and really provide, some interior assistance there to stopping the run because, as we know, they struggled in that regard last year. I mean, too many explosive plays, period, and too many explosive runs, which is inexcusable. And they got to get that. They got to get that done. So I think those two guys are drafted in the second and third round for a reason. I think they feel like they can give them some significant snaps. I agree with everything you talked about with the other picks. At the receiver position, we talked about year 1 to year 2. A lot of times there's a big jump, and 2 receivers, that you talk about. Charlie Jones and Yosef, those guys are in that situation where, hey, they have what it takes to play in the National Football League. That's been shown, and they make that next step and really makes serious contributions. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I'm really going to enjoy adding Burton to that. So we got 3 young guys there with Yoshi and Charlie Jones and Jermaine Burton. I mean, if one of them, you're taking 3 rolls of the dice here. If one of them lands, you're in a great position. You already got 2 great receivers, right? So no pressure on those. But if one of them can make an impact, or maybe it's the group and they're all their differing skills put together, gives you a third guy that's explosive, much more explosive than they've had. That could be pretty impactful together.
Yeah. I mean, they drafted a couple of rookie tight ends. Tight end groups, pretty deep. They got 5 of them now. He may be on, short-term IR. They may put him on. If they make the final roster decision, put him on the inactive list. He may miss the first 4 weeks kind of thing of the season, but this kid's got, a physical potential as well. So there's a lot of, you talk about 1 through 10. I mean, and the thing, we're talking about a ton of rookies because they scout them so well, they draft them and then they develop them, I mean, they draft them, they have a role for them. They either take that role or expand on that role in their development. So I mean, they've done a pretty good job in that area.
And it's important because think of the last time they went to the Super Bowl, 2021 year, right? How many rookies and second-year players led them there? And not just Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Logan Wilson and Jamar Chase, right? And Evan McPherson. You need these guys to be a core part of your team in order to get over the hump. I mean, that's cheap labor that these guys bring, that energy and difference. That's what makes your team different every year, is adding these guys. So, it's important. So good question.
And it's good coaching, develop those young players as quickly as you possibly can. You have to have good coaching as well. And they've done it.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Next question from IHOP for Bengals. With our new personnel and the time it takes to get adjusted, do you see the Bengals running more 12 personnel as well as an increased first down runs early?
We're talking about who's going to be the slot receiver, emphasis receiver. Well, we mentioned they got 5 tight ends, in that tight end room. And Joe Burrow had a pretty good rapport with Tanner Hudson. There's no question. Those two really started to feel good about each other. Joe knew exactly where he was going to be, when he was going to be there, and all that sort of thing. That's why I'm so excited to see how he does with Gesicki. But I think he's a Tanner Hudson at another level. It's going to be interesting to see. But I could see him going multiple tight ends because these guys have the flexibility to line up as receivers. I mean, they don't have to line up at the end of the line of scrimmage. So the thing I like about it, if you're going multiple tight ends to run the football, you don't even have to substitute. You can go, you can just move them. Okay, you're out in the slot this time. You can put them both in the slot, double slots with 2 tight ends, 2 receivers on the outside. And I mean, now the defense is like, oh man, we got our bigs in here defending the run. Now you got mismatches. So it would not surprise me to see, multiple tight ends on the football field, not only to run the football, but to get mismatches potentially in the passing game if these guys pan out like I think and a lot of other people think they're going to pan out for Joe Burrow, in the passing game. So, it's first down runs. I mean, you don't want to get into one thing I hated as a player. Okay, man, get in that run first down. You don't want to get into any kind of ruts, but you certainly don't want to never call a run on first down either. It's like you do have to have a proper mix, and coaches, will spend a lot of time. Okay, what are our percentages? I know on this down and distance, this call, we run pass ratio. What's our percentages? They don't want to, be locked into trends that are easy to defend against either. So bottom line is, if you're good enough, you want to be able to do it all.
That's right. And, I think if you're a new listener or watcher, you're maybe say, well, what's 12 personnel? Well, anytime you see a number for personnel, the first number is how many running backs are on the field. Yep. Second number is how many tight ends. So when we say 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, that means you have 2 receivers on the field, right? So if you see 21 or 22, just remember, first number is running back, second number is the tight end. So when we're saying 12, 2 tight ends. And we didn't mention Drew Sample, but that's their blocker.
Right.
But I was going to say Gesicki and Hudson, because you can split them up and move them around. And why this is important, and you alluded to it, the defense is looking, all right, which personnel is coming in? Okay, we got 2 tight ends coming in here. Oh, no, they both split out wide.
Right, they didn't leave the field. Right. They didn't come in the field. They were on the field, and now they're in a different spot.
Now they're going 4 wide, and 2 of them are tight ends, and your linebackers got to go cover them because you don't want to bring the safety down because you want that safety over top of Jamar Chase. So
you're thinking it's 12, but it's really 10.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they got 4 receivers and 1 running back, and that's the deal. Having
that versatility is going to be key and huge, and I want to see how they're going to employ that.
And you mentioned Drew Sample. They like him as a fullback, as an H-back motion guy. He provides that for them. So they feel like they got a lot of versatility with the skill set that they've got with that 5 tight ends that they've got on the roster right now. Mr. Z. Holden, what's more likely to complicate or derail a Super Bowl run? Other AFC contenders, young defenders not taking the next step, or issues not fully addressed in free agency and the draft?
Yeah, these are the reasons why, right? And also injuries, but I think we want to stay within what Holden's asked us here. And I'm going to go with, and it's something I think about a lot with the rest of the AFC. So I'm going to say other AFC contenders and the strength of them. We're in another dynasty again with the Chiefs. It was the Patriots for how many years? Now it's the Chiefs that seem unbeatable at times, even though the Bengals have had their success there. But the rest of the AFC is strong. And if you lose to these guys, if you lose to Josh Allen and the Bills, Lamar Jackson, or Justin Herbert, you don't feel bad about it. The AFC North is an absolute gauntlet. You got to make it through that first. And I think that's the toughest division in football. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But we'll see if the Jets and Dolphins can figure it out and if they can make some noise. The AFC South have all drafted quarterbacks lately. So you could see these teams getting into the playoffs and just being tough outs and being hard to get overcome. It doesn't mean you weren't a great team. It doesn't mean you weren't a Super Bowl caliber team. Sometimes you just lose to other great teams and quarterbacks.
Right. Sometimes teams are just, for whatever reason, injury luck. Let's face it, Patrick Mahomes goes down. It's a different dynamic.
Yeah.
That's why I really salute Jake Browning last year. Joe couldn't really go, and the Bengals were one game away from qualifying for the playoffs. The division, like you said, the division is so strong. Everybody in the AFC North had a better than 500 record. 50 years since that's happened in the National Football League. I mean, that just doesn't happen, that top to bottom strength. So it's like, man, every single division game, 6 of your games are going to be a dogfight. I mean, an absolute dogfight. Whereas other divisions, particularly in the NFC, it's like, man, this one, and that's dangerous because as a player, certainly you don't want to get that. It's not a week off. It's still the National Football League. But I mean, you have to play at such a high level for every single week against, the AFC and the AFC North in particular. I do think, it's the nature of the beast in the National Football League. It's all about competition, and there's plenty of it, and it can boil down to one mistake on a blitz pickup or a drop pass or, blown coverage. One play, can really, make or break you in a pivotal game that might be hard to rebound from. I mean, life in the NFL, man, it is a grind extraordinaire. There's no question.
Yeah, I think of the 2021 team and season, and they weren't expected to go as far as they did. They had
Right.
holes on the roster. Every team that wins it's going to have holes. So it's like, it's hard to say, you got to fill everything in free agency, or you need good players at every position. You need players that, do their jobs and make plays when it's time to do it. But you're going to have issues. You're going to get there and say, yeah, maybe pass protection wasn't great. Maybe we couldn't run the ball with a power runner or whatever the case may be. You don't expect Eli Apple to be your starting corner when you get to the Super Bowl, and
Right.
then he is. And you just need the guy to make plays. And someone like that does. And then it may still come down to one play. I still wake up at night and say, Jamar Chase beat Jalen Ramsey down the sideline. One more half a second. But yeah, sometimes that's just the situation.
And you referenced the offensive line. That was a nightmare that season as well
course.
with injuries. So, I mean, it always, you don't want to lose any key player, but attrition is going to happen. But man, it is so competitive, man. And, I think depth, that's what, injuries are going to happen. Roster depth, that's probably the biggest thing. If you have the best roster depth of anybody that's vying for a Super Bowl, you have a better chance of getting it done, because you're going to lose somebody at some point for hopefully just a week or two and not a month or 6 weeks.
Next one from Jay Hargrove. Does Coach Taylor relinquish more of his play calling duties this year and hopefully have Burrow under center a little bit more?
Well, it's a nice little two-parter right there, but I do think that Dan Pitcher, new offensive coordinator, he's been with the organization a while. He's been with Zach Taylor the entire duration of Zach Taylor's career. Does Zach have the utmost confidence in Dan Pitcher? Heck yeah, but he has the whole time anyway. And Zach and the other coaches will tell you that it's an overrated thing because they're all communicating. And it's not haphazard. It's not 5 people talking at once in Zach's headset, but he does take feedback from the quarterback coach, take feedback from the offensive coordinator, and then he'll make the final call. He'll make the final decision. Now, that final decision obviously is paramount. And will he give that up? That's to be determined. But it is by committee. It's not a dictatorship. It's a democracy until the fact that, okay, here's 2 or 3 options. All right, let's make a decision, and he'll make that final decision. So there is a lot of input, and a lot of times, I'm told that Zach will just basically go right along with what the guys are telling him. There'll be a consensus. Both coaches will have the exact same thought, exact same idea. Zach's not going to overrule it, So I think the whole play calling thing is interesting. It's great to talk about, but I do think the coaches all take pride in the role that they have in getting the proper play called, and when Jake Browning took over a quarterback and they went under center, it was different offense with the running game, and everything that went along with it. Joe, though, likes that shotgun because Joe does not like to turn his eyes away from coverage down the football field when it's play action, to do a proper play action. Joe likes to be, in that shotgun. As an offensive lineman, your run blocking is still the same. I mean, you may have different run blocking assignments and plays because everything's a little bit deeper in the shotgun as opposed to under center and a quicker handoff, whatever the case may be. But it doesn't change how you apply your techniques and everything that you do to go execute up front. So as an offensive lineman, it's like really no big deal. But is it, the mesh between the quarterback and the running back under center, handing the football off as opposed to in shotgun? And it's like, you don't want to have tells. Understanding you're just running the football. You better play action pass a good bit when you're under center and not just run that football because you don't want tells. You don't want shotgun. They're not running it under center. Yeah, they're running it. Yeah. They're going to run it at least 80% of the time. You don't want to fall into those traps either.
And they've fallen into that before.
Yeah.
I think the 2022 season where they kind of got out of it. It's funny you bring that up because M. Grayson 55 asked a very similar question. He said, it seemed like the offensive line had a lot of success with Browning playing under center. And do we think they'll incorporate more under center with Burrow this season and beyond? And I agree. I think they will. I think there is part of that where, hey, I want to do what I know and what I'm comfortable with Joe Burrow. But then when you see someone else run it with the same pieces around you, right? And you're like, okay, maybe we can get the screens going a little bit more off play action. Maybe we can get these play action over the middle of the field, chunk plays in our offense, and maybe the offensive line can protect for me while we do this stuff. Give me an extra half second on that. And then you see it work with Browning, and I'm not saying they're going to go full that direction, but I do think you absorb some of that, what worked, right? You got different personnel too. I think there was a press conference with Joe Burrow, and he says, we got to get more explosive. And then we did. He said, I think it was just a few weeks or months ago when last time he talked, said we got more explosive at that position and under center. And I saw how it worked. And I think bringing in Justin Riscotti, someone who has offensive line and quarterback, he can mesh run game and pass game together. I think that's the idea with that, to bring a guy in the offense. And like you started this with, everyone has a role. Every coach has a role. And it's not we got 30 seconds to decide what play we want. Right. We've decided a lot of this during the week. Hey, we end up with 3rd and 3 from 30. This is what we're going to do.
Situational football.
So they know already. They've already agreed on it during the week.
They've got a few, not a whole playbook. They got just a little handful of plays there.
Exactly. So it's not a big decision, hard decision, but it is Zach Taylor's offense, which I think is a big part of the appeal of having Zach Taylor as your head coach, right? Sure. You're going to lose coordinators, and we did this offseason. The Bengals did, but you still have the centerpiece there being Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. That it's not going to change too much outside of that.
As a former lineman, I can tell you that if you get a running game going, play action off of that is like a dream come true, because you still go into that defensive lineman like you're going to try to knock him off the line of scrimmage in the running game, and the quarterback takes it out of the running back's belly. And then, now the safety's like, man, I better get up and support that run. That's when the big explosives happen. The play action stuff, or when chunk plays can happen. You have to have play action. Doesn't mean a hill of beans if they're stuffing your running game. I mean, if they are stuffing your running game, you might as well go shotgun, because if you can't move them off the line of scrimmage and get, at least you're winning more times than losing at the line of scrimmage in the running game. Yeah, play action pass is outstanding. If not, it's a waste of time. They disregard the run. They play the run on their way to rushing the passer. It's like, it's such a different dynamic. But man, if you can get a consistent ground game going, and play action pass is such a huge weapon for an offensive lineman too.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of people want to see them running the ball more. I want to see them run more efficiently.
Successfully.
Right. Make it good. If it's a good running game, run it as much as you can, and then build that play action. Really kill the effort of those defensive linemen. You talked about it, right? Those guys, you're defending the run, then you got a quick pass, then you got a play action. I'm like, when am I going to get a pass rushing opportunity here? If I know you're not running the ball, well, then now you're just pinning your ears back.
And to me, a successful running game isn't hitting 1 for 16 yards, and then going -2 a yard, 3 yards. You're still averaging almost 4 yards a carry. A running game is averaging every time you run the ball. Yeah. You're pushing the line of scrimmage. You're not getting stuffed for no gain or negative yardage. You're pushing it, and you're getting 4 yards. You feel like every time you put the ball in the back's belly, it's good for 4, man. Not hope it's 4.
Yeah, so answer the question, I think we will see more of it, but it's got to be good.
And Joe actually said that. Joe actually said, you know what? I liked what Jake was doing. I like what they did with Jake. I like that package they put together. So I think they will see more. Last question, and it belongs to Will Lewis, 514-64805. With the new kickoff rule, does it mean teams keep more linebacker types to play special teams than in the past when they kept more wide receivers and defensive backs? Does this hurt a team like the Cincinnati Bengals?
I don't know that it hurts the Bengals, right? I think every team is going to figure this out. This is going to affect all 32 teams. Every special teams coach is probably trying to figure out a way and how do I configure this, right? They usually have a lot of say in the last few roster spots when the roster's set before week one, because you're going to figure out which guys I need for this. And yeah, I want to say I'm happy to see that they're changing the kickoff rule. I thought the kickoff got very bland the last few years with touchbacks every time. You almost didn't need to have those guys out there. But punts became more important in a lot of ways. But I think you're bringing the importance back to kickoffs. Does that mean more linebackers? Yeah, maybe potentially. Are they fast linebackers, right? Depends on what kind of linebackers you got in your depth. Can your running backs tackle, right? Can they get down the field? Can that fourth guy play and do that? More tight ends to block, because I think the big difference here is we will actually see more returns than touchbacks. So you need these guys to actually be able to do whatever the job's required of them. So I think it really depends on the player.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be more like a line of scrimmage play. It's because the coverage team they're gonna be closer, but they can't start until the ball hits the ground. And honestly, it's like I'm looking at linebacker types that can run, edge rush guys, big body guys that can run, that are used to disengaging from blocks. Linebackers disengaging from blocks. For wide receivers, defensive backs, speed guys, because man, you had to get your butt down there. You're such a distance away. You got speed guys, and then they change the rule or just kick it in the end zone every time, bringing excitement back into the game. For the fans, it's another play that instead of going get a hot dog or going to the bathroom or something because man, I don't give a damn about the kickoff. Who cares about that? Now it's can at least keep your interest a little bit, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, all the special teams coaches, Darren Simmons and everybody, like man, they got their nose to the grindstone trying to figure out, how sophisticated am I going to get? How much ball handling do I want to do? But tight ends, edge rush guys, linebackers that are used to engaging, blocking, getting off blocks, and wide receivers, that's not their forte. Deep backs, that's not their forte. It is going to be interesting. It's going to be a big adjustment. It's going to trickle down to scheme, trickle down to personnel. It'll look a lot different, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and don't forget the kick return part of it, right?
Sure.
So we need more blockers. Since we can't have them run back and then block, and they're just standing at a line to build a wall, maybe some offensive linemen get out there, maybe the bigger body guys. Remember, they used to do that with Jake Fisher back in the day. He was an athlete. But, Dave, did you ever play any special teams on that?
Yeah, I did. I played in the wedge like you're talking about, and we'd run some, things where you'd trap block and kick out and stuff like that. So I agree with you. I think like the bigger body, they can block like a tight end, might be on that level blocking instead of up front blocking. He may be back there. There may be tight end linebacker type guys that have some mobility with, these guys covering that, they can not only get in position, but execute a block as well. Or some of your more mobile and athletic offensive linemen, you're not the big horse type. But yeah, and I can tell you back in the day, man, it was ridiculous. You had these special teams freaks that were kamikaze pilots, and all they do is they get like 3 yards from you and launch, leave their feet. And man, it was a human missile. And it's like, man, and I can remember, bell rung a few times and then we could cut block though. And they now it's changed, no more of that, no more leaving your feet, no more cut blocking, got to hit from the waist up and everything goes along with it. Player safety is a big deal. And that's why the way they've structured this is from a player safety standpoint. It's not 100 miles an hour each way. It's more confined.
Yeah.
It's physical, but it's not, it's not physics. It's not, inertia. Oh, two bodies going head to head, and all of a sudden, train wreck time. Yeah. Those are brutal.
And any rule change that also brings excitement back. So if everything's in the name of safety, which it tends to be nowadays, but yet you're bringing a play back, because I miss kick returns. That was a big thing, and they're bringing it back. We'll see kick returns. We'll see big plays, exciting plays again. I'm all for that.
I can remember vividly as a rookie, Lamar Parrish returning a punt for a touchdown. It was huge in a game-winning victory. He returned a kickoff, 100 yards, and I'm like, man, this guy. So when you see a guy that can do that type of thing, I mean, the fans, it becomes must see. I mean, that and to add that type of element to the game and have that type of athlete doing it, It's big time for the NFL. I think they figured it out.
Yeah.
We'll see. Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.